Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Apod. Fun chats, fun topics, fun people. We bring this to you every single Wednesday at msgnetworks.com, iTunes, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you very much for listening, for subscribing, and leaving a comment or review. It helps the algorithm so other people can find the podcast, get it on some lists, get it in front of some others so that they can enjoy the podcast like you are. My name is Arda Ocal. I am your host, and it has been a very interesting and fun week. This past Friday, the Nhl Draft, we now know who was selected first overall in Chicago by the New Jersey Devils. It was the Swiss sensation, Nico Hischier, now a member of the New Jersey Devils organization, and by all accounts on social media, it looked like he had one heck of a weekend in New York City. We saw pictures of him at the Yankees game, getting a Yankees customized jersey. He was at the New York Red Bulls game, showing off his soccer skills. I'm sure he tried a New York pizza for the first time. He even got a New Jersey Devils cake, which I thought was amazing. So he was pretty busy in and around the city this past weekend after being selected first overall. Now, I wasn't in Chicago, but I was actually beside Prudential Center because the New Jersey Devils organization put together a big draft party just outside the arena, and it was awesome. The first thing I want to mention is that not only was the draft party going on, but it was also a Korean pop music convention called K-Con going on, and that was insane. And I mean that in a good way. When I got out of my car walking towards the draft party, I saw a bunch of tents and sleeping bags. People had been sleeping around the building at Prudential Center, presumably waiting for tickets or just waiting in line, whether it was general admission. And some people that I talked to said that they were there for 2 or 3 days. So props to them for waiting in line for that long for anything. I remember the days when people were waiting in lines for iPhones. I guess that still happens when a new one comes out. And at the Apple Store by Central Park, people would pay a service, I think it was like $15 or $17 an hour or something like that, to basically keep a position in line for them. And however long it was, it could have been 12 hours, it could have been 24 hours. But hey, if you got the money, I guess you're going to spend it on frivolous stuff like that. If you're already spending $600, $700, $800 on an iPhone, on the newest iPhone, you're probably going to not care that much. You're going to spend an extra couple $100 or whatever it's going to cost you to have that spot in line to guarantee yourself an iPhone. So anyhow, props to K-Con. It was a lot of fun. And actually, a couple of the K-Con patrons came into the bar where I was hosting for the Devils draft party, and they got into it. They were cheering along. I asked them to pick before the pick was made. I said, hey, who do you want to see on the Devils, Hischier or Nolan Patrick? And they actually said Nico Hischier. So good choice, K-Con patrons, and thanks for joining us. But the party was awesome. There was an outdoor area to play hockey. There were a lot of kids there. NJ was there. NJ is a very busy individual. By the way, we had a chance to interview the man behind NJ Devil last week, so definitely check out that podcast. If you ever want to know what it takes to be a mascot or how you even become one, you definitely want to listen to that one because it was like a behind the suit. I think that's the best way to describe it. Behind the suit with NJ Devil. So that was a lot of fun. Anyway, NJ was there. A few alumni were there. Dano was there, Mr. Devil Ken Danico, as well as Patrick Eliash, who was a surprise for the audience. He was there, and a couple of current players. Miles Wood was bartending a little bit, signing autographs behind the bar. I thought that was cool. And Pavel Zacha was also there. And we all watched the pick being selected together. And it was quite the experience. A lot of passionate fans. I want to mention that to all the fans that showed up to the draft party. So much passion and so much love for your team. And I really appreciate that. I talked to a lot of fans of the New Jersey Devils on Friday night, and it was just a blast to interact with you all and speak with you about your fandom, how long you've been fans, generations of fans. There was one family, there was three generations of Devils fans that they just love the team, and that love has been passed on generation to generation, from grandfather to daughter to grandson. And so that was really cool to see as well. So when Nico Hischier got selected, the bar went nuts. People were very happy with the choice. We got a lot of interviews done. It was a great time. And one thing I do want to mention is that it's pretty cool. This story of the number one draft selection, particularly by the New Jersey Devils for the first time in history, was covered by international sports media, in particular an outlet in Istanbul, Turkey. So let that sink in for a second. Yes, a completely non-traditional hockey market was there covering the Devils draft party at Prudential Center, or outside Prudential Center. And if there are any New Jersey Devils, if there's an uptick on the merchandise website of New Jersey Devils Nico Hischier jerseys in Istanbul in the next few days, we know why. By the way, all of our coverage is available at msgnetworks.com. I did a behind-the-scenes blog. There's interviews with some of the players and alumni about the pick, and there's a lot of coverage at msgnetworks.com, so definitely check that out. So one more thing that I did this week before we get to our guest is, as you know, I'm a volunteer with Make-A-Wish. I hosted their gala on the blue carpet a couple weeks ago, which was an absolute blast. And every now and then, I am lucky enough to join some wish grants. So this past Monday, an 8-year-old boy named Eric had the wish to be a police officer, and this came true on Monday. I was there to capture it all. We put a bunch of photos and videos on social media. We recorded it all. There's going to be a video online so that you guys can see the entire thing unfold. But let's just say there was so much love and happiness in that day. And you could just tell how happy Eric was. His face just lit up when he was able to go into the police car, and there was an actor portraying a bad guy, and Eric was able to apprehend him. It was just such a great morning, and you could tell that at least for that morning, he just forgot all of his troubles. And that's why those moments just fill your heart with joy, fill your soul with joy, you know? And that's why it's so cool to be a part of something like that, and just to see it unfold and create content so people can see it as well and share in that sentiment. And that's why I believe in the power of Make-A-Wish, you know, the power of positivity and happiness, and how that factors in to a child's recovery. And many children go on to live happy lives and reference the moment their wish was granted as the turning point to their being instilled hope and promise, to, you know, something to cling on to and something to hold on to. So that was a lot of fun. Check my Twitter. I posted a bunch of pictures at Arda Ocal TV and the Make-A-Wish Metro New York website and Twitter as well. There's a lot of content there. So our guest this week is the mayor of White Plains, New York. His name is Thomas Roach. You might be wondering why on earth I would want a politician on my podcast, because this is in no way, shape, or form a political podcast. We don't talk any politics on this podcast at all. So why bring on a mayor? The answer is because I had a chance to meet him a couple weeks ago when maybe it was a month ago now, when I hosted a Comic-Con in White Plains, and he came in to our panel that we were doing with a bunch of Star Wars cosplayers known as the 501st Legion, and I was just really impressed with how he was interacting with everybody, and he was a fan himself, and he left a great impression on me. I thought that he was a really cool dude, just coming to enjoy the Comic-Con like the rest of the population of the city that he is the mayor of. So we got to talking, and I asked him how many events he went to, and he said he actually answers that question in the podcast, so I'll leave the number as a mystery until then. But I thought, you know what? Maybe if there's even a slight sports connection, I want to bring the mayor on. So I found out that afterwards that he is a marathoner. So we talk about his running and give some tips if anyone is thinking about either trying a half marathon or a marathon. He is a marathoner, so he's done several in the past, and he has some good tips for us. But as loose as that sports connection is, the Westchester Knicks, of the now G League, I should specify that, not the D League. The D is gone. The G is in. The Gatorade League. The Westchester Knicks, based in White Plains, New York, play for the Gatorade League. So let's just remember that. And it makes me laugh when I think of Gatorade League because there's so much uproar about a possible sponsorship or a business logo going on a hockey jersey. And there are some coming to basketball very soon, and there's a big uproar. Oh, that's going to besmirch the good value of the jersey, and how could we put a sponsorship on a jersey? It's sacred. We can't do that. But what we can do is we can rename an entire league, one brand, Gatorade, the G League for Gatorade. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. But the Westchester Knicks still play. So they're, of course, the New York Knicks affiliate. They play in White Plains. There's actually some really cool. The one thing that struck me about this interview was we actually talked a little bit afterwards, and he loves the city of White Plains. And that stuck with me, too. I thought that was really cool. He gave me a lot of tidbits about the city. He's a big history buff. He told me a little bit about the history of the city, some interesting facts. I'm a big random facts guy, so to sit there for half an hour listening to him talk about his city is pretty cool. The couple things that we didn't get to in the podcast that I do want to mention, just in case you had never really heard anything about White Plains. Oh, and the reason I picked White Plains is because I'm a resident of White Plains, so I live in and around the area. So the Battle of White Plains, very big in American history. Alexander Hamilton was a part of that. And, of course, the Battle of White Plains, I guess, has gotten a bigger following, or at least a bigger name, because of the musical. And I believe, I asked him, I haven't seen Hamilton, but as I understand it, White Plains is referenced in the musical. So that gives it a little bit of shine, so to speak. But the other thing that I learned was that the Headless Horseman is usually associated with Sleepy Hollow, but in fact, the moment happened on the slope of Merritt Hill in White Plains, which is about 9 miles from Sleepy Hollow. So the Headless Horseman, that happened here in White Plains, New York. I say here, but in White Plains, New York. The other interesting historical tidbit I learned is that White Plains is actually the city where the state of New York was born. And the reason that is because when the Declaration of Independence was written and then it was distributed all across the country, the first time the Declaration of Independence was publicly read in the borders of New York was in White Plains. And so because it was publicly read in White Plains, the state of New York was established. And so the birthplace of the state of New York is actually happened in White Plains. So that's kind of cool too. But the most interesting thing is that the headquarters for Heineken is in White Plains. So yay, White Plains wins. Good job. So anyhow, I just thought it would be cool to have a mayor of a city on my podcast, and so I reached out to the city of White Plains, and they responded. And so I was able to book some time with Mayor Thomas Roach, who is the esteemed mayor of the city of White Plains. And so here it is, our conversation with Mayor Thomas Roach of White Plains. All right, sitting here in a boardroom in White Plains, New York, with the mayor. This is the first time I'm interviewing a mayor on. I think this might be the first time MSG Networks has ever had a mayor on a podcast. So welcome, thank you.
Oh,
appreciate
my pleasure
that.
to be here.
It's we met at a Comic-Con, White Plains Comic-Con at City Center, and I thought it was really cool that you happened to stop by. I was doing a random panel on Star Wars, and you took pictures for your social media, for your Twitter account. Are you a comic fan, or were you just in the area?
Certainly, I was as a kid. But one of the things I enjoy about being mayor is getting around to all the different events in the city. I like to be in contact with all the neighborhood associations, the different churches, synagogues, every kind of organization you can think of, the schools, everything else. So this is a fun event. It's something I've encouraged since I became mayor, is to bring more events to the city, particularly to the downtown. It creates an energy in the downtown that helps you maintain a vital downtown, and it's working here. We got a very vital downtown, so it's all good.
So, as mayor, how many events would you say you attend a week? This is a fun podcast. The whole thing is just the surrounding stuff.
I'm going to say on average 20, 25
really?
In a week.
Wow.
In a week. In a busy week, I would say. You can have a slow week with maybe you do 10. But the weekends.
10 is a slow week.
Yeah, I would say that's
still one
week.
A day on average.
Yeah. You're at least appearing somewhere every day almost. The summer gets a little slower, but the weekends are busy, so you got to factor that in as well. And and I get around to things like I go out to the pools during the summer and go out to watch the softball and baseball and just check in on the different parks programs we have. It's a labor of love. I mean, I love the city. I love the activities we have out there. And I like to get out and interact with people, find out what's on their minds, and make sure that we're serving them as well as we can.
So I want to talk a little bit later about becoming a mayor, but I want to dive into the running because I know you're a runner. You have a very impressive personal best in the marathon, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm training for a half marathon, and I'm dreading every single day.
Yeah.
I am not a runner.
Yeah.
But was it 2 hours and 49 minutes? I was listening to the website.
247.
247, wow.
And change. That was my second marathon. I ran 3:07 the first time, and not really knowing what I was doing. I didn't. I just drank water. I didn't. I wore my training flats, my racing flats, and when I ran the second time, I wore my training shoes and took the Gatorade. And night and day. 20 minutes faster is night and day in the New York Marathon in terms of what your experience, because you come to the water stations and there's nobody there. There's like a bunch of people with cups, and you get to just grab one. You come to the finish line, and I could see my mother. Like, they have these big balloons with letters on them, and you can find your family. I crossed the finish line. I looked across the field. I could see my mother because there weren't that many people there yet. So it was an amazing feeling, actually, for me. I was surprised how fast I was going that day. And it's something I'm proud of. I could always run, and I still do run.
So you, when do you find the time to run? Are you a morning?
It's hard. I mean, you have to do it in the morning or it doesn't get done. That's the bottom line. So I'm not as good now as I'd like to be. I didn't run this morning, and once I get going, with most people that are into athletics of any kind, find that when you're on a streak, it's good. So I'll run every day for a month and a half, and then I'll miss a day and I'll miss 2 weeks because it's just the nature of it. But I find it to be, there was a time in my life when I was relatively competitive, so it became one more thing to stress out about, and I'm really have approached it differently at this phase of my life, where it's something to do to feel good about yourself, to stay in shape, and maybe do a race here and there, but not get caught up in it.
Did you happen to watch? What was it? Nike was doing like a breaking the 2-hour barrier in the marathon maybe a few weeks ago. They had like the best marathoners in the world, and were trying to like scientifically solve the 2-hour barrier.
Yeah, I've read some things on this. It's it's like the 4-minute mile, I guess, was at one point. It's amazing when you think about what that means in terms of a pace for 26 miles. I mean, you're talking
insane.
You're talking about paces that very few people could run like a lap at, right?
No kidding.
And people are doing it for 26 miles. It's an amazing. It's an amazing thing to watch. And when you watch, because people will say to me, you've been running your whole life and you don't have any knee problems. Well, I don't. But I think different people have different gaits. Different people are suited for different activities. I mean, one of the reasons I love running is because I was finally like good at something. I mean, I wasn't that good at a lot of the other things I tried to do. But I think if you hear a marathon runner go by, you don't even hear them. They're like in the air. I mean, it's a very light touch. So I think some people have that ability. They're very... in marathoning, weight is everything too. You really don't want to be big. You want to be smaller. because every 5 pounds is like carrying a bag of sugar for 26 miles. So the time I ran the marathon that I did very well, I think I weighed about 146 pounds. I'm a little over 6 feet tall.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're too thin, but I was really into running at the time, and, But
so so I'm training for my half marathon. What's your biggest advice for me? This is the first one I've ever done. I've never run any long distance before. It's in September. I've been training since January.
Oh, you're doing great already. I mean, I think you want to get your miles in. You want to do intervals, definitely. That's really important. And that's how you build speed. It's great if you can get organized enough to do some speed work, like go out to a track one day a week and do some speed work just to feel what it feels like to run up at those paces, because you're building your cardiovascular ability. You want to get some of that strength in your legs as well, because you want to try and do well. And then in the race, the best advice I can give is pace yourself, but set a reasonable goal. And now with the GPS watches, it's much easier because you can actually monitor your phone. Just monitor your pace as you're going.
And drink Gatorade instead of water?
Well, for me,
is that a high level? Like get a couple under your belt first?
Definitely like up to 10K. I don't even personally, and I'm not condoning this, I don't really drink water during the race because you're done by you run at 10K. It's how long is it going to take you? It's going to.
Me over an hour, but you maybe a little less.
So like certainly in a 5K water stop is if you're walking it, and I'm just saying like if you're running it, if you're going to run a 5K and you're going to be finished in 18 minutes, like you really don't need any water in my view. When you should be loading up on water before and after, but I would, if they have Gatorade, why not? I mean, see, you're burning a lot of sugar, so you want to get sugar back in you.
Okay. That's the podcast. I just wanted marathon advice.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
That's it.
That was it.
For what it's worth, I haven't run one in a long time, but I plan to do one again. Actually, was working on running a marathon, and I was diagnosed with cancer a few years ago, and that kind of put the kibosh on that. So it took a while just to get back to running at all.
Tell me about that. So you're a cancer survivor.
Right.
Take me through that process.
I was diagnosed in 2008 with stage 3 cancer of the nasal pharynx, which is behind your nose at the very top of your throat. It's very rare cancer, certainly in this country, very rare cancer. And I had to have chemo and radiation. I was down into I was very low weight, like really, really much lower weight than I am today. I think into my 120s at one point. And, you wind up not being able to swallow because of the radiation, and it burns your throat so badly. But I had a good recovery, and I'm cancer-free now. But there was a point where, I couldn't walk my kids to school. It was 2 blocks.
Wow.
So for somebody, I can remember the last time I went running before I started treatment, because they told me they don't want me running during treatment. I had this idea that it's good to stay physically active while you're treating. They were concerned about, burning calories when they knew it would be difficult for me to take in calories. And so I had to give it up for that period. And then I kind of worked my way. It was very frustrating at first to be only able to run a half mile and be winded, but you learn. You just have to learn patience.
If this is too personal, cut me off, but like if it's a rare form of cancer, how was it discovered? Like how?
Oh, it's I was having nosebleeds. I was having some hearing issues. I was having jaw pain and stiffness. So I would loosen up my jaw before I had a sandwich. I wasn't thinking about it. I thought maybe I had TMJ. Dentist thought, yeah, probably TMJ. But when the hearing became more of an issue, like I'd have to tilt my head to be able to hear, I went to an ENT, and then they sent me for an MRI, and then it was a tumor. That's all the problems coming from a tumor. So, but it's such a rare cancer that, it's not something a GP or a dentist necessarily would pick up.
And how long was recovery?
The treatment is relatively short. It's intense, very intense, and head and neck people with head and neck cancer generally look the worst because they very often lose the ability to swallow and eat and drink. So for me, I think my radiation treatments, I believe there were 34 or 35, 5 days a week, and I went straight through on that. So I think that took about a month and a half, and my chemo continued into. I had 2 different types of chemo, and I had 3 rounds of the first type and 2 rounds of the second type. So I'm thinking that it was probably into 5 months or so. I had some side effects with some bone death in my jaw. I had to then do hyperbaric treatment for a few months to restore blood flow, but I'm fine now.
So now cancer-free in 2017.
Cancer-free, and I'm doing everything I did before I had cancer.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So
lucky. I'm a lucky person.
That's great. That's awesome. That's a cool story. So you're the mayor of White Plains. I want to know how one becomes a mayor and that whole process. So growing up, let's start there. Growing up, did you dream of becoming a mayor or being a politician? When did this begin?
I dreamed of being an astronaut. I was
really.
I was 8 years old in 1969 when two amazing things happened. Men landed on the moon, and the Mets won the World Series. And,
you're a Mets fan.
I'm a huge Mets fan, and so they both impacted me a great deal. So that's kind of what I was interested in. I like to read a lot. My vision wasn't that great, and I kind of felt like, well, even in fifth grade, I was calculating my chances. I'm like, that takes me out of the running for that. I don't really know. I was interested in being a lawyer, and I was interested in public affairs my whole life. I'm very interested in that. Very interested in social studies and history and things like that. So, majored in political science in college, and honestly, was interested in being in government, but didn't really see a path. Neither of my parents got to go to four-year colleges. My dad, after he got out of the Navy, did night school at Westchester Community College. My mom didn't get to go because she was...
You grew up in White Plains.
I was born in White Plains. I grew up in northern Westchester.
Cool.
So, and in Putnam for a little while. But my mom didn't... She went to White Plains High School. My kids are the fifth generation to actually live in the city. So we go back a long time here. And when I was a kid, I was here all the time because my grandfather was still here. The family was all here. We were the only ones who weren't. I think.
So you go to school, you get a political science degree.
But I wasn't. I really wouldn't even know how to begin. I went to law school.
So you didn't have that. You didn't have it in your head while getting your political science degree that I'm going to become a mayor or a member of.
No.
Okay.
No, definitely not.
What did you think you were going to become?
I was interested in politics. I wanted to be a lawyer. I really didn't even know where the road was going to take me. I didn't think I didn't think politics was a viable path for me. I thought it was something, just wasn't going to be available to me. So I went to law school. I came out of law school. I really wanted to try cases. I got a job with Legal Aid Society in the Bronx and worked there doing criminal defense work. And it was a great experience. I got a ton of hands-on experience, trial work, did a lot of hearings and things like that and enjoyed it. And then came up here and went into the private practice of law. And, I became active in the community. I became active. I was living in White Plains at that time. I'd been working here for a while. And I was living here, and I became active in the community. I was on some boards of some nonprofits. And I decided, there were some issues kicking around. I decided I'd like to get involved and help out on a campaign. And I reached out to a local politician. He was speaking at a meeting I was at. I said, how do you get involved? I mean, it's not in the yellow pages. How do I help on a campaign? And he basically gave me a call. We had lunch and put me in touch with the right people. I became active in the party here in White Plains. And then there came a time when there was, an opportunity. And
what was what was your first political role?
District leader, which is, basically carrying petitions, which I still am one. You carry petitions to get your candidates on the ballot, and you help with campaigns, and you participate in the community.
So that was your entry into politics.
Right.
Okay.
And so then I ran for council and was elected, and I served on the council for about 10 years. I was serving as council president when the prior mayor resigned, and I got a call with about 2 hours notice that he was resigning. I became acting mayor. I won a special election shortly thereafter, and I won. So at that point, I had the balance of the prior mayor's term, and I won re-election, and then I'll be up again in November. So I'm just finishing my first full term.
So it all came from one observation. You saw something in the community, and you said, "How could I get involved to help with this?" You asked the right person, and then that became your political career?
I have to say, this is a great community. I mean, it was amazing to me how quickly you could become active and involved in the community. Someone at my church brought me to Rotary Club. I met someone there who was on the board of a child daycare group, and I went on the board there. I was on the board of the YMCA. And so, it was really cool, I thought, to be living in a city where when I walk down the block, you say hello to people by name. Like it was not that hard. And I have a lot of relatives here too, of course. But I was always interested in it. I mean, I was in high school. I was a kid that got the New York Times. I sat in the cafeteria and read the New York Times. I was,
Were you the school president or anything
no,
like
none
that?
of that.
No, nothing
No,
like that?
nothing like that.
No school politics?
Nope. I was on a track team, and that was pretty much, and I played a lot of Frisbee. Love to do that, and handball and stuff like that. But I was always interested in public affairs. I read a lot. As I said earlier, interested in history. So I was interested in politics. It didn't seem like, it's kind of like, how do you do it? As you just started this off by asking. And I don't think there is any real path. I think that you should care about where you live. You should get involved in the areas that you care about, and see what happens. I think the people you want in government are the people that become active in the community and find their way into politics, rather than, someone who that's just their goal out of the gate and just are not that wedded to any particular issue. They're just trying to, stick their finger in there and see which way the wind is blowing and go that direction. I think there are some of those people, but there are, and I think it's understated generally. There are so many people in local government that are the opposite, that are just there to help their community. I just finished being New York president of the New York Conference of Mayors, and I've met mayors from all across the state. Everybody from Bill De Blasio down, and on to someone who's the mayor of a village that might have 100 people.
What are those meetings like?
They're great.
Are they?
They're.
What's the split between Yankees and Mets fans?
Well, once you get upstate, who knows what happens? I mean, they don't. They may not care.
The mayor
about
of
any
Buffalo
of us.
secretly a Jays fan or something.
No, I can't even. When you get out of the New York area, I think it might tip to the Yankees a bit. But it's the meetings are great. It's very collegial. People have a lot in common in terms of the things they deal with every day. Local government has nowhere to pass the costs on to. So, as we're directed to provide more services by higher levels of government, we have to find the way to do that. And so there's a lot of collegiality around figuring out ways to make that happen. And I can tell you that when you're at these meetings, I've never asked anybody what their party is. I followed a rule someone taught me at Rotary, which is I'd come into a room and I would sit at the table where I didn't know anybody, and at lunch and at dinner. And that was a great way to meet people and learn so many interesting things. This is an amazing state. I mean, it's one state, but it's huge. And we have, Niagara Falls and Times Square, and in between all these other wonderful things. And, the Adirondacks. I mean, it's tremendous, all in one state. And so it was a real privilege to be involved with everybody.
So take me into a mayoral campaign. So you become acting mayor, but then now you have to run again, and now the elections are happening. Yep. This isn't a political podcast. I want to know the mechanics of running a mayoral campaign. Well,
the mechanics are you get signatures to get on the ballot of the party you're in. And the bottom line for me is that since I was on the council, I work very hard. I go to every event I can go to. We met at Comic-Con, and I don't go to campaign. I've been going there for 16 years. So this year I do have an election, but I'm doing the same thing I always do. I was at a pre-K. Graduation ceremony today. I'm going to go cut a ribbon at a new store in the Westchester in a little while. I'm going to welcome everyone to Yoga Fest after that.
Sounds like a 30 event week for you this week.
Yeah, it's all good stuff because you see in those different events you're meeting people from very different walks of life with very different contact points with the city, and it helps you so much in finding out what people need and making sure they have it, and also making sure when you do this as mayor, it's something I've come to understand. The mayor is can be the most agile person because you're just a person. You don't have to call a meeting. You don't have to bring a bunch of staff. I don't do that. I walk where I can. I drive my own car. I turn down a city car. I go to these events generally on my own. But you can jump in and out of all these different pockets in the city, a very diverse community with all kinds of interests and backgrounds, and make sure everyone knows that the city knows they're there, and that their concerns are being carried back to City Hall. And it's a privilege. It's an honor and something I love. And so for me, a campaign is really doing what I do every day. But plus, I will still, at this point in my career, I still carry petitions to get signatures for myself and for my other Democratic candidates. And I still go door to door and knock on the doors of voters and say, hey, it's Tom Roach. I'm running for re-election. I hope I can have your support. And I enjoy that, actually. It's people in White Plains right now are very positive about where they live. Generally, no one's not 100% ever. I I think 76% of the vote last time. That's still 24%.
So how much of your time is spent going door to door meeting people like that? I mean,
that's going to be after City Hall hours, so it'll be in the evenings, for a couple hours in the evening when I can. Right. So it's harder for me to do it now because I'm in a lot of events in the evenings, and then on the weekends when I can. But I probably don't hit the number of doors I did the first time I ran because I don't have the free time.
That's fair. Okay, let's talk about the position of mayor, because even walking up here, there's pictures of all the old mayors in White Plains, and some of them had very long terms. One in particular, I think it was like 20 years. He was mayor of White Plains. Is the mayor position in politics like a destination job, meaning like you stay in that position once you become a mayor of a city? The goal is to just be the mayor and retire as mayor?
I get asked this question all the time, and it depends on the person, and it depends on what you're going into it for. And I think most people who go into local government go into it to serve their community. If they wind up going up the ladder, it's because, they saw an opportunity to further serve their community. You have other people who from, as I said, just view this as another type of career, and they're always thinking about how do I get to the next step. I'm not criticizing that, but I think it can happen either way. So for me, I think it depends on the person, okay. Whether or not that is your ultimate, what you're ultimately seeking.
Has the key to the city been given out in White Plains?
We give it. I rarely give it out. We do declare days for people.
Only one? Or
ceremonial? No, it's a traditional.
I always wondered that if you give a key to the city one year, but then 3 years later you want to give another one, do you take the key from the last person and say sorry? You got to give it.
At this point, it's purely ceremonial, but okay. It harkens back to the original role of mayor, which was to lock the city gate at night, make sure everybody was safe, and then go to bed. And that really is at its most basic what a mayor's job is today, which is to protect the people within the boundaries of your city, whether they're visitors, whether they're residents, no matter where they come from, who they choose to love, how they choose to worship, or if they choose to worship. My job is to protect all of them and try and make this a better place for them to live and work and play.
What would you say the biggest question you get from a citizen of White Plains is? Or the most common question?
I would say the question what I get asked a lot is, people are pretty happy and they ask me, what's your next step? That's what people ask me. And I don't have a next step. My next step is to hopefully get reelected this year and continue to serve the people of White Plains and continue on the path, we've made thus far. It's something, for many, that's pretty much where it stops. And I heard a senator once say, wistfully at the end of a hard day, the best job I ever had was small city mayor. And I always remember that, because there is an ability to make changes in people's lives with a phone call sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes you can really make a difference just on seeing something and you can act on it. When you're a legislator, it's a process. It is a process. And my hat is off. We have in this city great representation at every level, federal, state, and county. And but you have to be persistent to achieve your goals, and they do, which is amazing to me. But there is something, being a mayor is different depending on the structure of the government. I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but you can be in cities that have a city manager, the mayor it's a different job. It's you run the council meetings and you have a vote on the council. But in this city, we're kind of a hybrid. So I appoint, I can hire and fire. I'm the chief executive, and I have to sign the declarations of emergency and all the other things that come with the job. And there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that, but it's also such a privilege and such an opportunity.
What are some of the perks of being mayor? You said you turned down the city car, which I thought was very noble. But what are some other perks that are interesting being a leader of a city?
It's not so much. I don't really view it as perks. It's not the way. I have 2 brothers and a sister, 4 and 5 years. There was not. I didn't grow up in an environment where anyone was really allowed to think too much about themselves, right? So, and I mean that in a positive way. I mean, so when I became acting mayor, I went across the street to get lunch, and people immediately were treating me differently, which I thought was strange. And I was uncomfortable with it at first. But what you come to learn is that there is a role here that you play, and that when someone does something special, it matters to them that the mayor comes, not that Tom Roach comes, or whoever the mayor will be after me, but that the mayor comes, because it's a recognition that the community recognizes what you've accomplished, that the community, you know, recognizes what you've built, or how many people you've helped. And that's the greatest privilege. That's, to me, the greatest perk, is being able to tell people that deserve to be told and maybe aren't told enough that thank you, and you did a great job. To tell a kid, you know, to see a kid that is good at something and tell them, you know what, you're good at that. Let's see if we can help you do more with that. We created a program. We created a program here. I was really concerned that in the summer you read articles about, you know, 14, 15-year-old, you know, young men particularly drowning in pools because they're horsing around with their friends at night and get in the pool and don't know how to swim. And it troubles me that in a society as wealthy as this, that we would have anyone, you know, really who can't swim when they're a teenager. So we started a jump in and swim program with our YMCA, our YWCA, our youth bureau, with free swim lessons, and we did events around it to try and get people excited about swimming and get kids in the pool. Our schools do a great job. They make sure all the kids get in the pool. But I also thought, you know, competitive swimming is something that is not really even on the table for most kids. Like, it's never even, you know, baseball, football, basketball. But that's one of the ones that doesn't necessarily, you know, come in front of them. So I really wanted to start a swim team, a municipal swim team that would swim in the winter. I mean, in the summer, in the summer league. We have it now. We're going into our second year. But part of all of those programs was to bring in every year an Olympic swimmer to get some energy around the and so last year we brought in a swimmer, Roy Birch. He was from Bermuda. He was fantastic, did great with the kids. And then we had an event out at the high school at the pool, and we had a bunch of 7th graders swimming in the pool, and one particular girl was like way ahead of the others. And then I was sitting with Roy Birch, and he said, she's very smooth. And I said, yeah, she's fast. And then they swam, I don't know which was first, backstroke or freestyle, whichever. And then she was again ahead of everybody else. And he said, she's a natural. And I said, let's go tell her. And so she got out of the pool, and she's wearing like a bathing suit that, you know, you would buy for your kids to go to Jones Beach or something. She was not, obviously, she's not a competitive swimmer. And she walked over to Mom, who has a towel, and we walked over, and they kind of looked up at us. And I said, you know, have you ever been a competitive swimmer? And she said, no. I said, well, where'd you learn how to swim? The recreation program, you know. And so then I waved over to our commissioner, and so we're on the swim team now. And it's not that you're angling to put people in the Olympics, but like when an Olympic swimmer says to a 7th grader and the mom, she has natural talent, and you see their eyes light up, that's a perk. That's a
cool
perk. And you know, when a kid or any person is complimented on something they do well, I think it benefits them in every aspect of their lives. They do better at everything else. They do better in school. They develop confidence. There's something that they're better at. And I just remember back to the first day in 6th grade when they made all the 6th grade boys, you know, run around the school, and I was ahead of everybody for the first time. It makes you feel more confident about everything you do. And so that's a long way around to the greatest perk of the job, is being able to do things like that.
Well, I know that the Comic-Con, for example, when you left, the organizers were thrilled. They were so happy that the mayor would show up and just even make an appearance and just say something at a random Star Wars
That is so
panel.
much fun, first of all. It's so much fun.
Great picture.
And I
thought my caption was pretty smart, though.
Absolutely, you were great. You
It was
immediately
you
were
and
addressing
Darth
me as
Maul.
I entered the Barnes and Noble, and immediately I was having fun because it was it was like one of the Empire military divisions was basically speaking at the table, and they had their own official photographer, which I thought was fantastic. But you know, that's joy. For me, I feel joy when I'm at something where people that have a particular interest get to express that interest with other people who share it. Is something that it's hard to even describe, but I think the word is joy. Again, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but part of the beauty of life is getting to see what everyone else's cup of tea is, and I get a kick out of it, and I mean in a positive way. Like I wish I could do more. I mean, I want to keep it in our city. You know, it's been in the library before, but it kind of outgrew the library, and I think the new site is great. I think
terrific. Yeah.
I think the vendors like it because they get a lot of traffic that day. I think the shoppers like it because it's fun. It's fun to see everybody, you know, that into that type of thing, and you know. And it's not just kids; it's adults. But whether you go to an art show or you go to theater or you go to Comic-Con, I think it's great to see people that have such love for something and express it that way, I think it's energizing, whatever your particular interest is.
Let's end on this. I know, like, people ask you, I'm sure people ask you, like, what you feel your legacy is going to be as a mayor. I want to ask you, is there one or two things, like the swim team is probably one of the answers, but something that you're really proud of that has been done to the city of White Plains since you've become mayor that you've had a part of? Is there something that you're really, really proud of? Like, yeah, this is great.
You know, I hope that I've helped, you know, I mean, I love to talk about the city. I love to talk about how diverse we are and how well that diversity works in our community. Our kids are going to school together, playing together. We work together. And I hope that that pride I have in the city, and which I know is shared by our employees here at City Hall and throughout the city, and also by our residents, is, you know, been brought to the fore. It's because I really do think I am fortunate to live in the best place I could possibly live. And on top of that, I'm mayor. I feel like we've done a lot of things together. We're starting to replace our public housing with brand new housing that is beautiful. I want every, you know, child to wake up in a home they're proud of, where they feel safe, where they feel comfortable, so that when they walk out the door to go to our great schools, they're in the mode to learn. It's really tough to expect kids to go to a school and learn if their living conditions aren't what they should be. So I'm proud of that. And biggest struggle really as a mayor in this area is to get that affordable housing in, which we do, but it's not easy. And in that building, we have built an educational training center where we go out in the community and find out what jobs our employers, what jobs are open that employers can't find people trained for. And then we create programs to train people for those jobs. And it has just taken off. So, you know, I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of my city, and I'll be proud of my city when someone else is mayor. I just think we have great people here, and I think that's what makes a difference. We have a community that's engaged. And when I get an email and someone says, I hate to complain, I always tell them, call them up. I like to talk on the phone. I don't take it as a complaint. You know, I think when you're in a city where people stop calling, it's because they don't think it matters. When you email me or call me, then that means you believe we can do something, and that's a real positive. And I'll tell you, 99 out of 100 calls end favorably. In any community, you're going to have people that they're not happy. They wouldn't be happy if they were in another city. They wouldn't be happy, and I feel bad for them, and they just want to see negativity. But most people, even when they're negative, are negative because they care, and that's why they're upset. And you never want to lose that, and you never want to make people feel bad about that. So I read every email. I try and talk to everyone I can personally and try and resolve these issues. And, you know, I think what I'll remember, what I'll be proud of is I voted away and did the things I thought were right. And I really worked. I mean, I put the time in, and I hope I have more time to get a lot of this stuff done, because we have a lot of work at the train station, and we want to do more pedestrian and bike infrastructure in the downtown. So there's a lot of cool things to do, and this is a cool place to do them.
Last question. This is the toughest one, two-parter.
Okay.
If the Mets win the World Series while you're mayor,
right.
A, will there be a parade in White Plains? And B, what will the route for that parade be?
Okay. To answer the first question, I don't know what they did. It was some kind of playoff wild card, whatever. The garage was blue and orange, so it was no question. I don't
Can't dodge this question, Mr. Mayor.
No,
you got to answer the question.
I do not hide my allegiance. So, I mean, if they can produce some players for us, I would love to do something. You know, and we do have baseball players that live in the area. A lot of the New York baseball players wind up settling in Westchester on Long Island. So, you know, we get to see them periodically. But, you know, any kind of good thing that happens in this area, we like to celebrate. So I would certainly
So
not
we'll say
shy away.
yes.
Yeah, let's say yes.
Okay.
And the route, our traditional route is down Mamaroneck Avenue to City Hall, but we always have to look at a lot. You know, you got me into my logistics mode. We have to look at what time of year it is, you know, because it's disruptive to close streets. You know, we'd have to figure out how to do it.
This is way more complicated a question than I thought it would be.
Everything is more complicated than it looks. Everything.
Okay. And that's why you're the mayor, right?
Yeah, that's one of the fun things you learn, is that there's so many moving parts, but when you get them all moving in the right direction, it's pretty tremendous what can be accomplished.
Well, Mayor Roach, thank you for joining us here on the Apod.
I really enjoyed it, and I appreciate your participation in Comic-Con. I think your professionalism and the way you handled everything kept the energy up, and just the vibe there was so positive that it was a blast.
Thank you. So there you have it. our conversation with the mayor of White Plains, Thomas Roach. Thank you very much, Mayor Roach, for joining us here on the Apod. Another guest next Wednesday, every single Wednesday, msgnetworks.com, iTunes, Google Play. Thank you very much for listening, for subscribing, and for leaving a review. Because that algorithm works in our favor. We're putting those reviews and 5-star ratings into the universe so that other people can find the podcast as well. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great week, and we'll be back next Wednesday.